It had always seemed ridiculous to me how people could believe in God. For me, it was like believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. I grew up surrounded by believers, neighbors who never missed a single mass, and even my own mother, a woman who was always stuck in church as if it were her salvation. What she never knew was how much I disliked it all. I couldn't stand seeing those people crying, praying, humiliating themselves before what I considered non-existent being. I laughed, mocked, made bad jokes. For me, God was an invention of weak people, people who needed to hold on to something because they didn't have the courage to face life with their heads held high. But what no one knew was that my contempt came from much further back. My father, a man who called himself a servant of God, was actually a coward. He abandoned us when I was just a child, leaving my mother and me alone in our humble home in Iztapalapa to pursue a mission. As he said, my mother always told me he went to serve God, but I knew he only wanted to escape his responsibilities. From then on, every time I heard talk of the church, pastors, or Jesus, I felt a rage that burned inside me, and I promised myself I would never set foot in a church. I kept my promise with pride. When I grew up, I discovered that social media was the perfect stage for my personal war against believers. I began recording videos where I mocked, ridiculed, and exposed what I considered the most foolish things Christians did. I filmed them praying in parks, crying at services, praising with their hands raised, and I turned it all into laughable material. And it didn't fail. The videos went viral. I gained thousands of followers who applauded me for exposing believers. I became an idol among those who also hated religion. People stopped me on the street to congratulate me. They said, "You're brave. You say what no one dares to say." I thrived on that kind of praise. I loved the feeling of being admired, of destroying others' beliefs with a simple video. I felt invincible, after all. Where was their God? Why didn't I just shut up? It made me laugh even more, as if it were a direct challenge. It was during one of those recordings that I met Daniel, a simple gardener who was always praying in the park near the neighborhood church. He was the perfect target. He had everything I needed for a good video: humble, wearing worn-out clothes, always talking about God. I started following him and secretly recording him. I edited the videos with ridiculous music. I added offensive subtitles and uploaded them. The video exploded on the internet. People mocked Daniel as if he were the neighborhood clown. But Daniel never insulted me, never denounced me, never responded with hatred. He just kept praying, kept talking about Jesus as if nothing affected him. This irritated me deeply. How can anyone remain steadfast after so much humiliation? I wanted to see him fall. I began to provoke him every day by recording him live, hoping he would lose control. I wanted him to hate me. I wanted to see him scream, but Daniel never gave me that pleasure. My mother, who followed everything I did, constantly warned me. She would say, "Bruno, you're playing with the sacred. God doesn't let himself be mocked, my son." But I would respond mockingly, "Mom, God doesn't do anything because he doesn't exist, and even if he did, he wouldn't have the courage to face someone like me." He said those words as if throwing stones at the sky, challenging an invisible enemy. Deep down, perhaps I was waiting for something to happen. Maybe I wanted to prove that there really was no God. I tested the limits day after day, waiting for a reaction, but nothing. I kept recording, I kept growing my followers, I kept receiving applause. People adored me. They saw me as a liberator, as someone who opened the eyes of the deceived. I felt like a hero, but there was something I didn't see coming, something I had sown myself and was about to reap, something watching me from the darkness, waiting for the exact moment to appear. One day, while I was recording another video, I saw Daniel praying out loud with tears in his eyes. I approached with my cell phone, ready for another humiliating recording, but this time Daniel looked me straight in the eyes. It was the first time he held my gaze. I felt as if it pierced my soul. In a trembling voice, he said, "You can mock me, but don't mock God. He won't be mocked." He will answer you. Bruno will answer you. Of course, I laughed. I posted that video with a caption ridiculing his warning. My followers went crazy. They started imitating Daniel in the comments as if he were just another comedy character. But that night, something changed. I began to feel a strange presence in my room. It was as if someone was watching me, as if invisible eyes were following me. At first, I thought it was paranoia. I had to be strong. I was Bruno, the Christian destroyer, the most sarcastic atheist. Nothing could scare me. But the whispers began. Low, almost imperceptible voices calling my name. I turned on the lights, looked everywhere, but no one was there. Still, the voices continued. It was as if they were inside my head. That early morning, I woke up with the sensation that someone was sitting on the edge of my bed. I turned quickly, but no one was there. I felt an inexplicable chill, as if the heat had left the room. I got up shivering, trying to convince myself it was just stress, but deep down, something told me it was just the beginning. I covered myself completely with the covers, trying to calm down. But just as I closed my eyes, I heard a deep, slow, and macabre laugh next to my ear. And in that instant, for the first time, I knew maybe I had gone too far. I tried to convince myself that the laugh was just a product of my mind. It couldn't be real. I was an atheist, rational, the type who didn't believe in anything, but inside, something was starting to fall apart. Still, I decided to carry on as if nothing had happened. I convinced myself that the best way to prove it was all nonsense was to continue doing what I always did, make fun of believers, and my best target was still Daniel. Every day I found him in the same park, near the neighborhood church, praying with his eyes closed as if he were completely oblivious to the world. I filmed him without remorse, edited the videos, and uploaded them to my social media with offensive titles. God's Jester, the Park Clown, Heaven's Imaginary Friend. People were dying of laughter. I became a trending topic all over Mexico. Many asked me for more videos humiliating that fanatic. I became addicted to those applauses, those laughter-filled comments. Each like was like fuel to keep me going, but what infuriated me the most was that Daniel never responded with hate, never insulted me, never raised his voice, always looked at me with compassion and said, "Jesus loves you, Bruno." That drove me crazy. How could he continue loving me after so much humiliation? One day I found him praying for a young woman in the plaza. She was on her knees, crying with her face covered in tears. Daniel told her, "God hears you, you're not alone." To me, that was gold. I approached her, recorded her without her permission, and mocked her out loud, calling the scene cheap fan theater. I uploaded the video that same day, and it went viral within hours, but this time something changed. That young woman's name was Isabella, and what I didn't know was that she was going through a deep depression. I had ridiculed her in front of all of Mexico. Her face appeared in memes, reaction videos, and parodies. Social media tore her apart, but I, blinded by arrogance, didn't care. The next day, Daniel looked for me. He didn't yell at me. He didn't insult me. He just looked at me with infinite sadness and said, "Bruno, you don't know what you just did. I'm warning you once again. God sees you, sees everything, and will answer you." I laughed in his face again. "Your God still doesn't do anything. I'm still here, Daniel, more famous than ever. Where is your God? Why doesn't he shut me up?" That night, I received disturbing messages. Some said Isabella had disappeared. Others blamed me directly for her disappearance. I washed my hands of it as usual. It's not my fault if she can't stand a joke, I thought. But the next day I read the news that broke me. Isabella had been found dead in her room. Beside her was a letter that said, "I tried to believe, but they turned me into a joke." And below it was the direct link to the video I had posted. I was frozen. For the first time, I had no words. Not even my followers knew how to react. Some tried to defend me, others attacked me mercilessly. But what hit me the hardest were the voices that began to intensify inside my head. Now they were no longer distant whispers, they were screams, deep laughter, calling my name with terrifying clarity. "Bruno, you're mine." That night, the lights in my apartment began to flicker uncontrollably. I heard footsteps shuffling down the hallway, as if something were slowly walking toward my room. I covered myself with the sheets like a scared child, but the laughter sounded again next to my ear, louder than ever. I ran up, opened the doors, turned on all the lights. No one was there, but the atmosphere was charged, as if something invisible was breathing on my neck. My dreams turned into constant nightmares. I always dreamed of the empty plaza. Daniel praying alone, and in the distance, Isabella's figure watching me. With his completely black eyes, whispering to me, "Because of you, because of you." When I saw my reflection in the mirror, it wasn't just my face that appeared. For seconds, I saw a huge shadow behind me, with bright red eyes and a disfigured smile. My mother called me, worried. She begged me to stop recording those videos, to get off that path, but I kept going. I had become a slave to my own character. I didn't know how to stop. Despite the warnings, I uploaded more videos. I recorded myself mocking Isabella's death, as if it were just another spectacle. I wanted to convince myself that I wasn't responsible. I wanted to hold on to my pride. But every night, the darkness reminded me that I had already crossed a line. Daniel found me once again in the plaza. This time he didn't scold me. He just looked at me with tearful eyes and said, "I'm praying for you, Bruno. You can still change, but be careful. You're closer than you imagine." I didn't believe him. I didn't want to believe him. But that night, when I went to bed, I clearly felt someone sitting next to me. The mattress sank, the temperature dropped sharply, and when I turned around, I saw a shadow staring at me with blazing red eyes. The laughter sounded once again like a sentence. "You're already marked." The next day, I woke up startled, my heart beating like crazy, as if I'd been running for hours. The notifications on my phone kept coming. My videos kept breaking records for views and comments. New followers, messages from admirers. Thousands of people celebrating my mockery, applauding my bravery. On the outside, it seemed like I was on top, but inside, I was sinking deeper. The laughter that once amused me now weighed on me. The voices I heard wouldn't go away. And every word seemed to echo off the walls of my apartment. "You're coming with me. Us. You're mine now." But still, foolish and proud, I decided to continue. I convinced myself that the best way to silence those voices was to prove to myself that none of this was real. I planned it all. I wanted to confront Daniel once more, but this time in front of everyone. I wanted to humiliate him in public, make him break down in front of the cameras, expose him as a fanatic who couldn't defend himself. When I found him that day, Daniel was in the same plaza, kneeling as always, praying silently. I turned on my cell phone's camera and began shouting, "Hey, Daniel, your God still doesn't do anything. Here I am, more famous, stronger, more admired. Where is your God? Why doesn't he stop me?" A small crowd began to gather around. Some were followers of mine who laughed with me. Others looked at me with discomfort. Daniel slowly opened his eyes, looked at me with deep sadness, and without raising his voice, said, "Bruno, the Lord sees everything. He hears every word, every mockery, every offense. You think you're in control, but very soon you'll see who really rules." I leaned closer, challenging him sarcastically. "So what are you waiting for? Why don't you ask your God to shut me up right now? Come on, do it. I'm waiting." Daniel took a deep breath. His eyes filled with tears, and what he said next stopped me cold, even though I pretended to laugh. "I don't need to ask him to punish you. I pray that he will have mercy on you. But listen carefully, Bruno. God's answer is coming. Not because of me, but because he loves you too much to let you continue like this. It will be revealed to you." I mocked him in his face, feigning confidence, and posted the video that same night with ridiculous subtitles and mocking effects. The video went viral within hours. My followers celebrated, mocked Daniel, and parodies of his words. But that night something really changed. As I edited my next video, the lights in my apartment began to fail. The computer monitor turned on and off by itself. The air became dense, as if the environment was saturated with something I couldn't see, but could feel. I heard footsteps inside the apartment, heavy, slow steps that seemed to drag on the floor. I got up quickly, checked every room, every corner, but I was alone, or so I wanted to believe. The laughter returned. But not from a distance. This time it sounded right next to my ear, as if someone was literally breathing down my neck while laughing softly, enjoying my terror. I jumped in fright, my phone fell to the floor, and when I picked it up, the camera was in selfie mode. When I looked at the screen, I saw something that paralyzed me. Behind me, a huge shadow with red eyes and a macabre smile was clearly reflected. I turned around immediately, but no one was there. Or maybe I just couldn't see it with my own eyes. I heard my name whispered from all around, from the kitchen, from the bathroom, from the walls. Bruno, Bruno, Bruno. I tried to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. It was as if something had stolen my voice. I ran to the bathroom, turned on the light, looked in the mirror, and there it was written on the fogged-up glass, as if someone had just written it with their own fingers. "He's coming." My hands began to shake uncontrollably. I wanted to think someone was playing a trick on me, that it was a coincidence, but something inside me told me it wasn't. I forced myself to go back to the bedroom, sat on the bed, took a deep breath, and screamed, "God doesn't exist. Neither does he. This is all an illusion. I am the master of my life." At that moment, the closet door burst open. The footsteps came closer again. And when I looked in the mirror once more, the shadow was still there, watching me as if waiting for the right moment to trap me. The voices didn't stop. "You're ours now, you're ours now, you're ours now." I tried to ignore them, but it was impossible. They had surrounded me, they had marked me, and the worst part was that I had opened the door myself. I didn't know that Daniel's prophetic warning was already being fulfilled, that there was no turning back, that very soon I would come face to face with the one hiding behind that laughter. Despite everything that was happening, despite the voices, the shadows, the footsteps, and the whispers that were already part of my daily life, I kept recording, I kept mocking, I kept pretending that none of it was real. I refused to accept that maybe, just maybe, I had gotten myself into something I couldn't control. It was then that I crossed a line I should never have crossed. I ran to the bathroom, turned on the light, and saw the letters in the mirror again. There was no more time. I knelt on the floor, crying like never before. For the first time, I felt like there was no escape. The shadows were real, the voices were real, hell was near, so close I could feel it breathing on my neck. I tried to convince myself that it was all the product of stress, that I was losing my mind, but each new event proved to me that this wasn't just my imagination. There was no turning back, I had crossed the line, and now the price was about to be exacted. I knelt in the darkness of my apartment with my head in my hands, while the voices continued to echo. "You're coming with us. You're coming with us." I felt like the worst was about to happen at any moment, and I couldn't stop it. That night was just the beginning. What had started as whispers and turned into a relentless pursuit. It no longer mattered whether it was day or night, whether I was alone or surrounded by people. Presences followed me everywhere, the footsteps, the shadows, the laughter, everything enveloped me like a dark blanket that wouldn't let me escape. I closed doors, put locks on them, turned off the lights, tried to hide under the covers, but nothing protected me. Fear had taken over me completely. I slept with the light on, with the television on, as if that would scare away what was chasing me. But the darkness no longer needed the night to reach me. I lay down in my bed, trembling, pretending to be asleep, but then I felt it. Something sat down next to me. The mattress sank down beside me. I didn't see it, but I felt it. Its presence was undeniable. The cold emanating from it was unnatural, icy, as if death had touched my shoulder. I tried to move, but my body was paralyzed. Then I heard it. The laughter, that slow, deep laughter, echoing right next to my ear. A laughter that pierced my mind like a knife. I jumped out of bed, ran around the apartment, turned on all the lights, opened doors and windows, trying to escape, but I couldn't run anymore. The shadows followed me around every corner. I saw them reflected in the windows, on the television, on my cell phone screen. They were always there, as if waiting for me. I saw objects move on their own in front of me. Chairs dragged, doors slammed shut, glasses fell without anyone touching them. I could no longer deny it. It was real. I was being tormented. I began to hear the voices even when I was outside. I walked through the avenues of Mexico City and heard them whispering to me, "Bruno, you have nowhere else to go." I looked around, but no one seemed to hear them, only me. The nights became torture. I couldn't sleep. And when I finally fell asleep, I was dragged into horrible nightmares, where I saw Daniel praying in the plaza, and Isabella, always kneeling, always crying, always whispering. "Because of you." The voices were no longer just in my head, they were recorded in my videos. While I was editing, I could hear my name whispered in the silences. Comments began to appear on my posts. At that moment, a strange voice was heard, but I knew exactly what it was. I knew who was calling me. One day, while I was editing one of my last videos, the computer monitor went dark. Suddenly, I thought it was a power failure, but the screen turned back on by itself. This time it only showed a black background with red letters that said, "He is coming." Panic gripped me. I kicked the computer and turned it off. I tried to convince myself it was a joke, that someone had hacked me, but deep down, I knew it was much more than that. I ran to the bathroom to calm down, but when I looked in a mirror, I saw something that paralyzed me. It wasn't just my reflection. Behind me was the same shadow as always, with intense red eyes and a distorted smile. I turned around instantly, but there was nothing. I hit the mirror with all my might until it shattered into pieces. But in each fragment, that figure was still visible. I couldn't escape it. It was as if it had taken up residence in every corner of my existence. My mother kept calling me, begging me to leave that path, to seek God, to stop making fun of it. But it was too late. I couldn't stop. I'd become a prisoner of my own character. I didn't know how to get out. I no longer knew who I was without that mocking mask. I started to not want to see anyone. I would stay locked away for days on end, surrounded by the shadows, the voices, the laughter that never left me. My friends just wanted me to keep recording. No one really cared about me. They just wanted me to keep laughing. One night I tried to record one more video, but before I could start, all the lights went out at the same time. The monitor screen turned on by itself once more, displaying a new message. "He's already here." I ran to the bathroom, turned on the light, and in the fogged-up mirror, I saw clearly, there's no escape. Tears began to fall. I knelt on the floor, completely defeated. I no longer had the strength to fight. I could no longer pretend. I knew something was hunting me, that something was dragging me, that my fate was already sealed. And the worst part was that I had opened that door myself. One night, my body simply couldn't take it anymore. I was exhausted, without strength, without soul, without peace. I hadn't slept in days. I dragged myself into bed as best I could, hoping to lose consciousness for a few hours and rest, even a little. But that night I didn't sleep, that night I was taken away. Everything was like a blackout. I closed my eyes for a moment, and when I opened them, I was no longer in my room. I was in a dark, damp place with an unbearable smell of sulfur and decay. The air was heavy, burning me from the inside with every breath. The floor was sticky, and everything around me seemed made of misshapen stones, as if the place had been carved by evil hands. I looked around, trying to understand where I was, but deep down, I already knew. I had heard it so many times, ridiculed it so much, and now I was here. I was in hell. I heard footsteps approaching. They weren't human footsteps. They were like claws dragging themselves across stone. I saw monstrous, deformed figures with broken wings, glowing eyes, and long, sharp teeth. They surrounded me as if they had been waiting forever. "Bruno, welcome to where you belonged." The voice resounded like a deep echo, as if speaking through every demon at the same time. I wanted to run, but there was no way out. The creatures pushed me forward as if they knew exactly where they were taking me. As I walked, forced to walk, I passed scenes that chilled my soul. I saw people suffering, being tortured in indescribable ways. I saw some I recognized from old videos, people who, like me, had publicly mocked God. I saw young influencers who made money humiliating believers and were now screaming, pleading for help that would never come. The fire surrounded me, but it was a fire that didn't illuminate. The flames burned without consuming, as if the pain were eternal and offered no peace from destruction. I saw maggots crawling out of bodies, devouring from within, while souls remained alive, feeling everything. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't. Hell doesn't let you look away. Then all the demons parted, leaving a corridor open, and I saw him. His tall, slender silhouette slowly approached. Each step made the ground shake. When I saw him before me, I immediately understood who he was. His eyes were glowing coals. His smile was cruel and eternal. He wore an elegant, perfectly tailored suit, but his presence was so overwhelming it took my breath away. It was him. It was Satan. "You called me Bruno. You called me for years." His voice was soft, but charged with a power that crushed my chest. "Every time you mocked God, every time you laughed at him, you served me without knowing it." I wanted to defend myself, to say it was just humor, that I didn't believe in anything, that it was all a joke, but he cut me off with a contemptuous gesture. "It doesn't matter what you believed, it doesn't matter if it was a joke. Who isn't God's? You are mine." His words pierced my soul. I tried to run away, but my legs wouldn't respond. I fell to my knees, crying and begging. "Please, I don't want to be here. Please give me another chance. I didn't know. I want to change. I want to repent." But he crouched down beside me and whispered, "There are no jokes here, Bruno. There are no second chances here." He snapped his fingers, and immediately the demons dragged me into a deep pit where fire engulfed me. I felt the burning chains close around my wrists and ankles. I felt my skin burn without being consumed. I screamed, I cried, I begged, but it was all in vain. The voices surrounded me. "You are ours. You are ours. You are always ours." Satan watched from above, sitting on a throne made of bones. "You worked for me better than many who signed pacts, and now this is your place." The pain was unbearable. The fire was engulfing me, the worms were crawling over my skin. But the most horrible thing was the certainty that there was no end to it, that I wouldn't die, that I would suffer like this forever. And in the darkest moment, when I no longer had the strength to scream, I heard a voice that was not of this place, a powerful voice that cut through the fire and the horror. "Mercy can still reach you." The creatures stopped in irritation. The chains began to loosen. Satan rose up in fury. "No, he is mine. He is mine." I clung to that voice like my last hope. I screamed with what little I had left. "God, please take me from here. I repent. I repent." The fire began to die down. The chains broke. I felt myself being torn from that place. And then I woke up. I was on the floor of my room, shaking, covered in sweat, breathing heavily, but I knew it had not been a dream. I looked at the mirror, and there, written in the steam, I read a new sentence. "You were heard." I woke up on my bedroom floor, disoriented, my heart pounding, drenched in sweat, shaking like never before. I wanted to believe it had all been a nightmare, that my mind was playing tricks on me, But what I saw in the mirror left me speechless. There, etched in the steam, was the writing, "You were heard." I tried to get up, but I felt weak, as if the energy had been sucked from the depths of my soul. The shadows were still present, the voices still murmured my name, but now they sounded different, as if they were angry, as if they had lost something they already considered theirs. Days passed, but the manifestations didn't stop. The lights kept flickering, objects kept moving on their own, and the dark presence surrounding me seemed to be getting more and more upset, more aggressive. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I didn't want to see anyone. I was trapped in a labyrinth I didn't know how to escape. One night, while lying on the couch, I heard those footsteps again, but this time they were different. They were firm, heavy, calculated, as if the master of those footsteps was in no hurry because he already knew time was on his side. I jumped up, but I couldn't move. My legs froze when I saw him. It was him. Satan, the same one who had shown me hell, was standing there at the entrance to my living room. His tall figure, his impeccable suit, his red eyes like burning coals, his crooked smile that seemed to cross his entire face. He entered without permission, as if he already belonged there. He walked toward me calmly and sat down across from me. The air became heavy. Every breath cost me an enormous effort. "Did you really think you could escape me, Bruno?" His voice was soft, but every word weighed like tons on my shoulders. "You served me better than many who consciously worship me. You gave yourself to me without even knowing it." I tried to respond, but my throat tightened. I could barely whisper. "I didn't want to serve you, I didn't know how, I was just making videos, it was humor." He smirked and leaned toward me. "It doesn't matter if you knew, it doesn't matter if it was a joke, you served me just the same. Every laugh you generated was one step closer to me. Do you know how many young people were led away from God by your videos? Do you know how many souls you dragged to me?" My eyes filled with tears. I began to cry, to beg, to ask him to leave me alone, to give me another chance, to allow me to change. "Please don't take me with you. Please, I don't want to go with you." He looked at me silently and after a long moment said, "You're mine now. You always were, you just didn't realize it." My body trembled uncontrollably. Satan stood up and circled the room slowly as I curled up on the couch, completely defeated. He stopped behind me and whispered in my ear. "You worked for me, Bruno. You became my best soldier without having to sign anything. But it seems someone up there still wants you." His tone changed. It became more serious, more dark. "But don't get excited, this isn't over yet. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to tempt you. I'm going to remind you who you were and who you served. It's not so easy to erase what you sowed." In that instant, the ground shook, the lights exploded, and Satan's shadow began to slowly fade. The last thing I heard was his laughter, that deep laughter that had been with me since the beginning. "We'll see each other again, Bruno. This isn't over." I was left alone, trembling, crying, hugging my own legs as if that could protect me. I dragged myself to the bathroom, turned on the light, looked in the mirror, and there was a new message. "There's still time." I knelt on the floor and screamed desperately. "God, please help me. I don't want to go back to him. I don't want to be his." The dark voices tried to return that night, but this time when I spoke Jesus' name, the shadows receded. For the first time, I felt like I had a weapon. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't completely lost. But I also knew that Satan wouldn't leave me alone so easily. I was a battlefield, and the war had barely begun. After that night, Satan's shadow never left me. Although he disappeared physically, his presence continued to haunt every corner of my life. The voices didn't go away. The shadows continued to walk through my apartment. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, I felt him. I knew he was waiting for the right moment to claim me. The whispers grew in intensity. "Bruno, you're ours now. There's no escape. He belongs to you." I heard him on the street, on public transportation, even as I walked among the people in the Zocalo. It was as if no one else could hear them, but I was surrounded by them. The shadows were no longer hiding. I saw them quickly pass by the walls, the mirrors, even reflected in store windows. The atmosphere in my apartment became suffocating. Everything broke. Light bulbs exploded, doors slammed, appliances turned on and off for no reason. I even heard footsteps running into the bathroom when I was alone. One night, the air became heavier than ever. The cold chilled me to the bone. The laughter returned, but this time it wasn't coming from far away. It was as if someone was standing right behind me, breathing down my neck. I turned around immediately and saw it. Satan was in my living room again, but this time he wasn't coming to talk. He was coming to show me what awaited me. "Did you think this was over?" he said to me in that soft voice that chilled my blood. "I'm just reminding you of what your eternity will be like." He snapped his fingers, and suddenly I was yanked from my apartment as if my soul had been yanked out. I opened my eyes and was back in hell. This time, I wasn't taken. This time, I was dragged straight into a burning cell made of red-hot chains. The flames engulfed me, but they didn't kill me. The pain was eternal. The screams of damned souls echoed in my ears. I could see others like me. People who, like me, mocked God. People who thought faith was a joke. They were all there crying, screaming, being devoured by worms, by snakes, by horrible creatures. They chained me. Satan approached me with his grim smile and said, "This is your place. This was always your place. Here the mockery never fades. Here the pain never ends." The demons tore at me. I felt every burn, every bite, every tear in my skin, but the most terrifying thing was consciousness. I wasn't dying, I couldn't faint, I felt absolutely everything. I was trapped in an eternal cycle of suffering. I screamed at God, I screamed at the top of my lungs, "God, please don't leave me here. I beg you, give me another chance." The creatures laughed at me. "Satan," it said, "there is no mercy here. There are no second chunk